Hi, I'm Safi, and this is the Electronics. Today, in the Electronics interview, I'm joined by Mr. Vivek Tyagi, who's a technology sales leader with over 25 years of experience. He has worked with leading brands and he's also an advisor to startups. Now, if you want to drive your sales up from nil to multi million dollars, perhaps this is the interview you should watch. So stay tuned, Mr. Tyagi. Welcome to the Electronics interview. Your career, it's a massive experience. Tell us, how has it been?
Thank you, Safi. First of all, thank you for having me here. I started out in early 90s as an engineer. I'm primarily an electronics engineer. Started out with Philips, working in technology area. And then as my role took me to see some customers who were consuming that technology, I slowly over years drifted towards the sales job. And since then, I moved over to Motorola and Freescale Semiconductor, SanDisk, and Western Digital eventually. The journey has been fantastic because the country, the economy, and the electronics industry, semiconductor industry has grown tremendously in last 2.5 decades.
We have had discussions on electronics tech in our interviews. You have spearheaded sales for leading brands in the sector, certainly an important task. How was it tackled a decade ago, and what is the scenario now?
There has been sea change. Maybe a decade ago, and prior to that, everything in sales was, in the B2B sales was always face to face. There was no concept of, online selling at all. In the retail or consumer industry, also, there was, through the offline channels. But I think a decade ago, we all have seen the advent of, e-commerce industry in India. So there is both offline now as well as online sales. We have seen in last couple of years, some of these smartphone brands has completely started their operations completely on e-commerce or online. But I think the way to go forward now is for all the brands to have an omni-channel strategy, which is a mix of both online and offline. And if a customer is browsing something online, he should have ability to buy that. So omni-channel strategy is the way to go forward.
Electronics is a mixed sector. We see MNCs, we see players at the national level, we have SMEs, and also the startups.
Right.
When it comes to sales, what to use the strategy, the right strategy? Should this be a general strategy for everyone alike, or do you suggest that different setups should have different sales strategies?
Yeah. I think there's no one single formula that fits all the categories of companies, but large companies, whether it's MNC or national Indian companies, obviously got to have their own dedicated sales team. But for startups which do have limited budget today or they're in process of perfecting their product yet, they could definitely outsource to freelance salespeople who specialize in sales, have access to certain category of customers because of their past relationship, and that model could be used by startups.
What's your suggestion in general to companies in semiconductors and consumer appliances when it comes to sales as one of the critical functions of business?
So semiconductor is basically, as you know, is a building block for any electronic equipment. So it's really a raw material. And semiconductors are of two type. One is like commodity, general purpose semiconductor devices. So the sales strategy again for commodity is of a different kind. And then there are specialty semiconductors, which take long cycle time to design with the customer into their design of the electronic equipment. So again, you need the characteristic of salespeople working in both these domains, and the strategy for the go-to-market is different. In the specialty semiconductor, you need highly skilled technical kind of sales force that can work closely with the engineering side of your customer to design the product into their system. For commodity, you need different skill set people, and it's more of a availability, right price, and those kind of factors to the sell.
You are helping companies who wish to start or expand operations in India with GTM strategy for India region, also helping startups with business plans. Now, go to market planning and even raising seed funding. These are the buzzwords. In the context of electronics startups, can you share what's happening in this ecosystem?
So in general, startup ecosystem is buzzing very much in India, more so in the software as a service space. But the associations such as ISA and even few others are helping electronics and semiconductor startups also to come up. So we have various initiatives with Karnataka and other state governments, where we provide incubation to many of these electronic startups. Even government departments such as STPI in Bangalore, I know, have an incubation center for specifically IoT startups. So there's a lot happening in this space, and more needs to be done. In this budget, you've seen the government has also rolled out further tax benefits to the startup. So I'm sure this startup ecosystem is poised for big growth in coming years.
Several government initiatives are already in place to make Indian electronics sector globally competitive and to encourage domestic production. What are additional measures that need to be taken, if at all?
Safi, before going into that, let's look at first the size of this electronic ecosystem in India. So, as per IESA and some other market study, the total electronic system design and manufacturing ecosystem is likely to reach $400 billion by year 2025. Out of which about 70 billion is on the design side, and remaining is the electronic product manufacturing value here. Within that, of course, smartphone is the biggest piece, but then there are a whole lot of other electronic equipments. Now, today, 70% of the electronics is being imported in country for outside, and that's obviously the foreign exchange outgo for the country. Government understands it. Industry associations such as IESA and others have been working with government and the Department of MeitY, Central Government of India, Karnataka government, several other governments have now rolled out, the MeitY has particularly rolled out this scheme called PLI, or Production Linked Incentive Scheme, where they are incentivizing both Indian and foreign electronic product manufacturer to set up factories here and then get direct cash incentives if they meet their targets. So that part is pretty well done in last couple of years. In my opinion, what next should be done is to encourage the electronic product design ecosystem in India. Now, these products are being manufactured today because of PLI scheme, but the design decisions, which component to use, what chip to use, what software to go inside, it's all taken by these companies outside. So if government comes out with some scheme that encourages both design and manufacturing here, that would be icing on the cake.
In electronics, specifically consumer appliances, distribution is fragmented at best. What is your view on what can happen to electronics distribution in the next decade?
So, Safi, if you see, distribution is highly fragmented in consumer appliances and many other areas. But I think with the e-commerce and internet on everybody's fingertips, not just B2C but B2B platforms will have a big play going forward in the electronic distribution. We are already seeing it in some categories. You will see in consumer electronics and the appliances categories as well going forward. So platform is the way to go in the future. Platform is nothing but somebody creates a digital platform that is allows buyers and seller to conveniently make a business on that platform. So B2B platform in the future, in my opinion, is the next big thing that is going to happen in India.
Mr. Tyagi, thank you so much for talking to the electronics.
Safi, thank you so much for having me here, and I wish you and the electronics all the best for the future.
Viewers, thank you so much for watching, and please do subscribe, share, and like our digital platforms for more information.